new analysis by the charity Oxfam says that at least 87 civilians were killed in airstrikes in Yemen over the past 2 years using weapons supplied by the UK and the United States. The charity accused the British government of ignoring what it called indiscriminate bombing by the Saudi-led coalition, which is fighting the Houthis in Yemen. US President Joe Biden came to power promising to end weapons sales to Riyadh, but has since allowed some $4 billion worth of arms sales. Well, for more on that, we're joined by Dr. Elisabeth Kendall, Middle East expert at Girton College, Cambridge University. Thank you very much indeed for being with us, Dr. Kendall. Is this a strong case by Oxfam for both the United States and the United Kingdom to end their weapons sales to Riyadh?
Well, it is a strong case, and it's great that Oxfam has looked into the figures. But there is a dilemma for governments at the moment, which is that if they don't support the Saudi-led coalition on the one hand, there is a real danger that the Iran-backed rebels would overrun the country. And on the other hand, if they do support the coalition, it seems to be inevitable that some of those weapons are going to kill civilians. So they really are in a bit of a dilemma as to how to find that middle ground. But what I should say is that the Oxfam figures are only up to February last year, and that things have changed significantly since then in terms of airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition.
Would you say that the charity is ignoring the other side of the conflict and the role of the Iranian-backed Houthis?
I wouldn't say that Oxfam is ignoring it. Oxfam is holding the UK government to task. Let's remember that in 2019, the UK High Court did rule that arms sales to Saudi Arabia should be suspended, and that it was the UK Trade Secretary, our former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, who was at that time Trade Secretary in 2020, who said that she could not identify a pattern of violations. And of course, that was highly questionable at the time. It's great that Oxfam has brought this up because, in fact, in the 5 years preceding that statement by Liz Truss, the United Nations panel of experts on Yemen had in fact found violations in every single one of its annual reports, violations perpetrated not just by the Houthis, but by the Saudi-led coalition. And let's remember, the UK government isn't selling weapons to the Houthis, so it's not up to Oxfam to bring that up. We are selling weapons to the Saudi-led coalition.
And do you expect the UK government to take those criticisms on board?
I would expect the UK government to listen to those criticisms, but it is now worth bearing in mind that since a truce was introduced in Yemen in April last year, a truce that lasted 6 months, there have actually been far, far fewer casualties as a result of Saudi-led coalition airstrikes. And that should also be borne in mind, because it doesn't help matters now for the UK or the US governments to withdraw their support from the Saudi-led coalition at a time when the Houthis have the upper hand and are essentially trying to institute a supremacist government in Yemen.
And what about the prospects for that ceasefire, Dr. Kendall? We had representatives from Oman in Sana'a this week. Do you think that it could be renewed?
I think there's a chance that it could be renewed, but in the background, all warring sides are manoeuvring as though it might not be renewed. So, I think it's 50-50. There's a real chance that this war could re-escalate and that it could even fragment and that it could spread not only in the middle central regions and the west coast of Yemen and in the northern areas, but right through the south. So we have to really hope that the talks that are going on at the moment that are being spearheaded really by Oman do come to some kind of fruition. And that in the meantime, there is at least a ceasefire of sorts long enough to enable the UN to put some kind of mediation framework in place.
Dr. Elisabeth Kendall, thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.